whole.
Right. Yeah. Harry, guys, let's see if we can have a little round table on this. The decision, Scratchy Harry, was delayed. How does that affect eventually what has happened? How does it look that this decision to have Mr. Gordon removed, or part of the statement is saying he recused himself. Mr. Gordon, he said it was his decision, but that delay, Scratchy Harry, how does it make the decision look?
I mean, well, for me, the neighbor, from a level of morality, yes, and it does make the system, does make it look away, neighbor. But for me, neighbor, it was neither here nor there for me, because I tend to look at these things different, and I didn't see, neighbor, even if Mr. Gordon was to recuse himself or Mr. Gordon was to be asked to step aside from the PNP, neighbor, I don't see what Mr. Gordon will be losing, neighbor, compared to if this was done by a minister within government. I don't see nothing there. You don't get any extra salary for being a part of the PSC. You don't get any extra perks for being a shadow minister or opposition spokesperson and a minister or anything like that. So asking ASC stepping aside from the PSC, stepping aside from the shadow perks person, neighbor, these things don't go anywhere for me, because come month end, Mr. Gordon is still going to collect his salary, regardless of what the outcome is. And if it was compared now to a government minister stepping away from a position, it would definitely hurt that government minister. That government minister will lose some form of compensation. They will lose some form of
benefits,
perks.
And benefits.
Anything right here.
And benefits.
Yes, I don't see Mr. Gordon losing anything right here. So it's neither here nor there for me, neighbor. Yes, a lot of us, neighbor, it will still make us, a lot of us look at the PNP and see the PNP for who they are and who they really is, neighbor. But for me, neighbor, it's not going nowhere. It's not going to go nowhere, neighbor. It's not going to change any PNP to want to become neighbor, right? And this is not going to do anything. The functionaries and the arms of our society who are supposed to stand up for these things and come out and create highlight towards these things, but they are silent on this. They themselves, neighbors, are not running around and doing anything. Jamaica is a country, neighbor, where when it comes to corruption, if it's not done where persons believe that they directly steal money or put it in your pocket or anything, neighbor, they don't tend to look at these things very seriously. Yes, the PNP should have come out early and did something, yes, that Australia your organization, a political organization, seeking political relevance, seeking to be the alternative government. It doesn't look good. But it's neither here nor there for me, neighbor. My problem lies, neighbor, within university hospital, neighbor. That's where the issue for me lies. Who are the person at the university hospital who grant these waivers to these persons, neighbor? That is where my big issue is. Who is the person in the ministry? What type of connection do you have with these persons? You are the one who working in government. You are the one who's responsible for all of this. So that is where my issue lies, neighbor. But in terms of Mr. Gordon, neighbor, I don't see Mr. Gordon losing his salary come month end. I don't see Mr. Gordon losing any perks stepping down from the PSC. I don't see Mr. Gordon losing anything stepping aside and losing his position as the opposition spokesperson, because you don't get any perks for that. You don't get any extra salary for that. So it's neither here nor there for me, neighbor. To be honest, if he's not, and it is very difficult to call for him to step aside as a member of parliament, because he was elected by the people. So it is not very easy to get rid of a member of parliament. So stepping away from the PSC and stepping away from your position, neighbor, that don't do nothing for me. A lot of person might say, yes, Scratchy, as a matter of proper governance and stuff like that, it makes sense. Yes, it does make sense. But if it was a government minister would have suffered way more losses compared to the opposition. And we must face the reality, neighbor, that the opposition and the government is judged differently when it comes to corruption. And that is just the reality of Jamaica. And is it something good? No, it is not good, neighbor. The mere fact that this comes up on Mr. Gordon, neighbor, for Mr. Gordon to feel some type of way or some type of pressure in terms to be put on Mr. Gordon, if it's even for him, his salary, I know he's a wealthy man, but he should even miss his salary, neighbor, until a full investigation is completed. After that, his investigation is completed now. If he's not found in the wrong or anything now, his salary is retroactive, giving back to him retroactively. But to just have to step away from the PSC or step away from your position as opposition spokesperson, that's enough for me, neighbor, because that don't do nothing for him. He wasn't getting any salary for that. He didn't get a government vehicle to drive because of that. He didn't gain anything from that, neighbor. So stepping away from that is nothing for me. Totally nothing.
Okay. Let's examine with you, therefore, the political strategy at work here, Scratch, because you know that political parties strategize, and sometimes the delay is so that the strategy can benefit the party. Now, do you think that the People's National Party missed an opportunity to distinguish itself as the party of accountability? That's what they say. Do you think this is a missed opportunity in terms of the political strategy?
All right, in terms of the political strategy, neighbor, political organization, neighbor, tend to look at also, when it comes to political scapegoats, neighbor, are trying to push out persons, neighbor, for whatever political mishaps they might make, neighbor. It has a lot to do with the person's relevance towards that party, neighbor. What are we going to lose if we should remove someone like this from our political organization, neighbor? And I believe that the PNP, including funding, neighbor. And I believe that, neighbor, the PNP took a while, neighbor, to think about this, neighbor. Maybe they saw Mr. Garden, neighbor, as someone who's the chairman of their Region 3, someone who, neighbor, have the ability, neighbor, to gain some form of funding for them, someone who have the ability, neighbor, to give them certain leverage and stuff like that from a political standpoint. And we must understand, neighbor, that we're talking about the People's National Party, and let's not be fooled. This is an organization that always put their best interests at heart over what is in the best interest of the governance of this country and what is the best interest of Jamaica.
So the calculation, the calculation is against parties' interests versus the public. What is to be gained and what is to be lost.
That is what they did, neighbor. That is why they took the time out, neighbor. So what they're going to lose, neighbor, from a political standpoint, neighbor. And they believe, neighbor, that if they should come out and be against Mr. Garden, neighbor, maybe they have the fact, neighbor, that they might lose a lot of capital. Because Mr. Garden is a very wealthy man, neighbor. Mr. Garden brings a lot of leverage to that organization. He brings a lot of gains to them, neighbor. So they're going to try their best to see how they can fit it, neighbor. And I think, as I said, removing him from the PAC, removing him as a shadow spokesperson, neighbor, that don't do nothing because he wasn't gaining any form of extra salary from that. I mean, Mr. Garden might not even have time on his hand, neighbor, to go to these PAC meetings and stuff like that. So it is really nothing, you know. But again, from the PNP standpoint, neighbor, I didn't expect anything better from them. And any well-thinking Jamaicans who were waiting their breath, neighbor, to think that the PNP would have done anything that let's say, yes, the PNP is very upstanding and this is against corruption, neighbor. We lose them breath, neighbor. Waiting for nothing, because the PNP is an organization that always put the best interest of the PNP above the best interest or what is in the best interest of Jamaicans. And again, we have the organization, civil society, the media groups and stuff like that, neighbor, who are supposed to go and do their own private investigation and try to see what they best they can bring up and come up with about this. They are not interested in it neither, because they are all in line and they are all proxy groups of the People's National Party. So again, neighbor, as I said before, I don't see this going anywhere. I don't see causing any problem for the PNP neither, because as I say, I don't think anyone who's going to say that they're not. Neighbor, corruption in Jamaica, neighbor, is done from a political standpoint. Everything the thing, neighbor, that is done in Jamaica, it is being done from a political standpoint. And we have to just understand that that is the reality of where Jamaica is. Is it a good place that we're in? No, it is not in a good place, neighbor. It is very bad for the development and advancement of our country to know that corruption is not seen as corruption. Corruption is seen from a political divide, where if I am a PNP and one of my persons come up or is alleged to be in any form of corrupt activity, persons who support the organization or who don't come out and talk about it, these persons come out in defense. Where if I am a member of the JLP, it's the same thing. Persons from the opposition are going to come out and try to attack me because they're saying that I should do it. So neighbor, it is just the reality of where Jamaica is. And it is very, very sad. And I don't see the PNP gaining anything, and I don't see them losing anything for it neither. It's just 9-day wonder for me. Mr. God, it's just a reality. It's just a reality, neighbor. Nothing is going to be loose from this.
Let me press you a little further on the politics too, Scratch. I surmise that there is a perception in Jamaica, and I think it hurts the PNP electorally, that they are corrupt, they are a scandal-ridden party, and they can't be trusted. Does this not reinforce this narrative negatively for the party?
Yes, neighbor. It might solidify what a lot of us as Jamaicans are thinking, neighbor. Neighbor, if I am a thief, or if someone is a thief, neighbor, and I hear that that person thieves something, neighbor, I can't be surprised, neighbor. He's a thief. That is what I expected of him. That is what is expected of him.
But if the PNP is going to regain state power in Jamaica, it has to break that perception where it is seen as incompetent, where there's a lot of nepotism, favoritism, this aura of corruption lands and affects the party, Scratchy. And this matter is bringing people back to that thinking, that image of the party. Don't you think that it is likely to hurt their electoral chances?
Yes, it can. Yes, that is possible, neighbor. But again, neighbor, the PNP, neighbor, is not a political organization, neighbor. The PNP been in government, it been in opposition for 3 terms, neighbor. The PNP don't see that, don't attribute, neighbor, the attachment of corruption to them as the main reason or the main function for them being in opposition.
They don't,
neighbor. They don't. It's only persons like us who support the JLP who look over the fence and say yes, they are corrupt, neighbor. The People's National Party, neighbor, don't see corruption being the main reason why they are in opposition, neighbor, for 3 terms. They don't. They see something else. They see it as
why do you think they lost 3 consecutive elections?
I don't think it is a result of corruption neither.
What do you think?
My reason, neighbor, for seeing the PNP losing 3 consecutive elections, neighbor, is that Jamaica, neighbor, saw, neighbor, a leader, neighbor, in Andrew Michael Owens, neighbor, was raised the political landscape, neighbor, was changed the political landscape, was raised the quality of leadership. And the PNP, neighbor, is failing from a leadership standpoint, neighbor. They cannot find anyone. Jamaica is a leader-centric country. Jamaica vote and support a base of leadership, based on the core fundamentals and the belief of the People's National Party. Since Portia Simpson Miller, neighbor, the PNP has lost the way, neighbor. They have not found an ex-leader, neighbor, who can match that style and quality of what the PNP was built on. The PNP was built on loving the poor. The PNP was built on loving poverty. The PNP was built on charisma. The PNP was built on that. Portia Simpson Miller won an election, neighbor, based on charisma. That's what Portia Simpson Miller won the election on. Michael Manley win election on charisma. PJ Patterson win election on charisma. Which other leader that you see? Peter Phillips didn't have any charisma. Mark Golding didn't have any charisma. So that is what is missing from the PNP standpoint. I am a JLP supporter, strong job, and I don't think the PNP lost the election because of corruption. I don't think that, neighbor. I think the PNP's lost the election, neighbor, because the Andrew Honest, neighbor, has set the bar so high that the PNP, neighbor, has failed, neighbor, to find a leader who can match that. I think they're more losing the election, neighbor, people knowing that whenever the PNP is in governance, it is very hard for persons to see any form of development for the country. And I think a lot of Jamaicans have grown to understand and know that, okay, we want to see roads, we want to see water, we want to see low unemployment, we want to see low poverty. And they know that whenever the PNP is forward, these things are not possible. So neighbor, Jamaica is not, let's not be fool ourselves. No political organization in Jamaica has ever lost the election because of corruption. Not one. Not one single political organization in Jamaica lost the election because of corruption. And that is very sad, neighbor. Corruption, Jamaica is a country where corruption is based on who do it. Corruption is based on the political and the political divide and who which political fence. Corruption is based, neighbor, on the level of corruption. Corruption is based on where the money goes. Did the money go directly into your pocket? Or did the money go here? Or did the money go there? That is where corruption is based on, neighbor, in Jamaica. And it is very sad. And I can tell you, neighbor, that the PNP, neighbor, don't see themselves being in opposition as a result of being seen as a very corrupt government, neighbor. They don't, because if you look at the type of organization, if you look at the well-thinking Jamaicans who still support the PNP, these guys who understand things and know about corruption, they don't care. They still support the People's National Party, though. So these guys don't care about corruption, neighbor. We have to understand, neighbor, that the PNP is in opposition, neighbor, as a result of who is the leader of the Jamaica Labour Party right now. And not because of any corruption. It's Andrew Michael Owens, why the PNP is in opposition for 3 consecutive terms.
Well, thank you so much. Harry, let me come to you. Are you there?
I'm here, neighbor.
Okay, I'm going to take you to institutional integrity in this matter. Having talked to Scratchy about the politics of it, let me take you to the institution itself. Is there a point to be made, Scratchy? Harry, Scratchy raised the whole matter of the situation at the university itself in terms of the systems at the University Hospital of the West Indies and their vulnerability to misuse. How is it Harry, that or should the focus be placed there also? The systems of accountability at the hospital and the proclivity of those systems to be misused?
For me, neighbor, it has to be a simultaneous look at it, right, in terms of approach, because in the act of fraud and corruption, one doesn't happen without the other, right? From the statesman who saw the opportunity to utilize his privately owned company to take advantage of, and this is not even a backdoor to getting access. This is the upfront coercion of a level of corruption. And the university has a lot of questions to answer based on what I know, because, for example, the matter was brought forward by the AG, out in general, and they had the 2021 president, I believe it was, that signed off on something current. And as such, you should not have that happening. The president at that time would have done his term and demitted office. So in a broken system, you have that said man attaching signature, having not been in the post currently. There's also the whole aspect of the current leader or president of the university, who is saying he knows nothing about a signed document with his own signature. So that is an institutional framework failure, right? In terms of an overbody that needs to ensure that they monitor these things. And a lot of questions will definitely come from these things, especially from me as I go through it to see what is there. But the truth about the matter is that, neighbor, a lot of these, questions that should have been asked regarding the failure from an institutional level and a systematic level from for the university is one that should have been in the last meeting. Here's why. All that was said in the last PAC meeting was actually already placed in the Auditor General's report months before. Why it's not explored is because those members failed to read the full report of the Auditor General before they went to the PAC meeting. And as such, the people of Jamaica are just hearing delayed things, nothing really groundbreaking. But when we look at the failure of the system, it simply means that there are persons who are pretty much in a level of power to take advantage and think that is a privilege. Now, if we look at it, neighbor, and this is two systems failing and close to, we'll put it close to privilege, right? Mr. Gordon, who is a sitting member of parliament, one of his thing and the strategic objective, and I can read it, I'll probably have it somewhere here. One of his strategic objective is to ensure that collectively ministries and public bodies account to the parliament for their expenditure, operations, and use of statutory powers were required by law and generally to promote accountability in public affairs. Now, when you have a legislature, right, who knows what his strategic objective is and is now morally corrupt to utilize his power, which puts him in a privileged area, right, to then now be able to coerce a failing system rather than carry out what number 6 of his strategic objectives says he should be a part of. He saw that loophole.
Harry, to be fair to him, though, Harry, I wouldn't pick a frame, but on the matter of transparency being fair, he has been a member of parliament from September. When was this?
No, but he's been doing it before. And as such, he's also in
the position.
No, but based on
what you're saying, he's been a member of parliament in September, since election September. While he was a member of parliament, or before he was a member of parliament?
The investigation is stated that it was just before, but he would have still been closer, right? Because if you know, Scratchy, you own this company, you're the principal. Well, wasn't he a councillor? He was a councillor prior to, right? To becoming a councillor, to prior to becoming a member of parliament.
Yes.
Right.
But
so it is by
but the
virtue of
truth,
him being a member of parliament that councillor position it no longer exists.
Yes.
right?
Right.
But to know, and this makes it look even worse on him in a scratchy. To know, let's say as a councillor, it happened with his company. But no, you've assumed the role of a member of parliament, and this is one of your objectives. Morally, you should do the right thing and not be in the position. No, we can always question his integrity and his moral compass when it comes down to that. But to assume the position and then know that your company is still a part of it is outright and blatantly taking a piece at the people of Jamaica, right? And when you look at it, it is not one you can walk away from by just repaying the money. You have now utilized prior to, and potentially if he wasn't caught, to continue utilizing the same service. Because if you look at it and put it under the microscope, right, or the microscopic lens, he himself still have not seen where he's done anything wrong, and the party stands beside him. All the while knowing that they were taking advantage of, maybe, I don't even want to call it a system failure anymore, but to also maybe one that they've orchestrated over the years so that they can take advantage of that quote-unquote failure that we would call it, right? But these are the things that we have to, as we go forward as a nation, we have to demand more from each and every person that is put in the power to oversee these things. And anybody who has the high level of responsibility from an institutional level and so on has to be held in extreme high standard, and they should never ever get away with anything. And it doesn't matter who it is, because now you have, neighbor, something like this that open up more than just a can of worms. It is not just on the political side, but what it is going to do now is to highlight systems and frameworks that we have to now correct and build going forward. This is a part of let's build Jamaica better, you know, right? And if we want to put in guardrails, these are the very areas and institutions that should be servicing the people and carrying out the work of the people that we have to also ensure that we protect in a high level. Because when you hear now the statement coming out of about, you know, they're trying to put a level of moral spin on it, or the Jack Dennis is you know, below market price when it comes down to dialysis, that does not make a correction as to the fact that there was fraudulent activity done. And as such, you cannot bring the whole aspect of legality with morality, because it should have never been done in the first place. It is no different, and I'll this maybe bring it close. When Mr. Vaz went ahead and they said he forego procurement process in a Category 5 hurricane to ensure that Jamaicans were better, the People's National Party called for his head. The media also did the same thing. And that man didn't steal anything. That man didn't take anything from the coffers of Jamaicans. He was trying to help Jamaicans going forward, and the narrative was different. This is a matter of more than just legality and morality. It is one in which our laws will be tested, our institutions in the judicial process that should enforce these laws will be tested, and as such, they better come true in order to be true. You have to ensure, no matter what happens, this goes the full way, the full length, because it is not just stepping away from the PAC. It is not just removing yourself from that body. It is now putting the light on the very culture of both the leadership of the People's National Party, who wants to be the next government, and also the integrity and accountability levels of each and every single member over there, including Julian Robinson as well. Because I would have heard him made a statement to say, and this was with Deon Jackson Milan beyond the headlines, where he should have been speaking in the capacity as chairman of the PAC. But he came out with a political swing. When Young Jamaica called for Mr. Gordon to resign, and this is not verbatim of his words, persons can go and find it, the recording. He said he doesn't listen to them because they're just speaking it political, because when it was on the other hand, they didn't say anything. And that is a man who also don't understand the capacity that he should be acting in. You are the chairman, speaking as a chairman of the PAC. You don't come with your party biasing.
Yes.
Right? And the JFJ as well, who has refused to comment publicly on the matter, is also a civil rights group who should not be taken seriously when anything happens. Because if this is a matter that requires them to come and speak, and they failed to do so, inclusive of the fact that under Mr. Gordon's orders to his lawyers went after media houses to silence them, which simply means these are more than just acts against the coffers of Jamaican, but also the ignorance and wanting to keep it away from the people of Jamaica. You don't go and threaten media houses outrightly, knowing well that you did the criminal activity, because this is fraudulent and corruption, fraudulent activities and corruption at its highest. And you still went after the channel and the medium that should be educating the people about this matter. You went after them to silence them, pretty much threatening the freedom of the press, knowing that there's no repercussion for you doing it, because I don't believe there's any legislation to stop anyone from silencing the press. And I can tell you this, neighbor, that attack was strategically done because they knew not everybody in terms of media house has the financial power. Let's not fool ourselves. The RJR group has lost over $500 million in a financial year. They would have never followed up the story because they are afraid as to where they are financially to stand their ground. And Mr. Gordon and his lawyers knew that very well. Now, Nationwide would have been a whole different thing, and they stood their ground because they knew what they knew. But this is a man who is trying to cover up something at every angle, and as such, he should be dealt with under the law exclusively, because this is a high-profile case now. And the judge should, whatever the outcomes are, Mocha and other who are investigating, they have to now ensure that they do it thoroughly and that a lesson is made out of anyone. Doesn't have to be just Jack Den and company, but the others as well. You have to take a stance against it, because this is now something that may have been happening for a very long time and nobody knew, right? And the thing about it, for people who is going to come now and say, oh, Jack Den is offering services and all that, none of that matters. Because the argument, and this is very extreme, the argument of a criminal, right, a Don, can simply say he put on treats for kids and all of that, and as such, the ends is there. Yeah, it is no different in this matter.
Yeah. Hold on there for me, Harry. Let me jump down to what is called legality and morality. Let me start with Scratchy. Scratchy, it is not part of our culture for members of parliament to resign, even when they do things that are, outside of what is expected. They remain and serve out the term. Even when they don't go to parliament, they never really give up their positions. Based on the Golden Statement, Scratchy, if no law was broken, what exactly is Dennis Gordon being held accountable for?
Good point, neighbor, you touch, neighbor. Legality and morality, neighbor. In Jamaica political landscape, neighbor, morality, neighbor, has no space in Jamaica landscape, neighbor. You're not going to see any politician in Jamaica ever resign as a matter of morality, neighbor.
That not happen, yes, sir.
That not happen, yes, neighbor. That just don't happen in a Jamaica political landscape. That is just a reality of Jamaica political landscape. Morality, neighbor.
But hold on. Do we accept that, or do we push for that to happen, to change?
Neighbor, yes, we don't have to accept it, neighbor. But how far can we push for it to happen? How far can we? Someone decide that they want to? If someone decide that they are to be step aside based on a morality standpoint, neighbor, and they decide that they don't want to be removed, neighbor, how do we go about that?
We can't do anything about it, and there is no law to remove a member of parliament.
And there's no law, neighbor, to remove a member of parliament. A member of parliament was elected by the people, and you have to be removed through electoral process by the people, neighbor.
Yes.
So let's put it from a legal
as a matter of fact, Scratty, not to cut you, but even if the MP decide that him no business, him no matter, him tired of the work, him now go back to parliament, him still get him salary for the term, you know, so the five years.
Still get him salary, neighbor. That's what I'm talking about, neighbor. Him still get him salary. So, neighbor, let's look at it from a legality standpoint now.
Yes.
Neighbor, from a legality standpoint, whatever issues being done here, neighbor, it is the then group of companies and the and the university hospital that is in this hot water. Now, Mr. Dennis Gardner is the CEO or the owner of Jotland Group and Company. Neighbor, we know how these things go, neighbor. Even if more or any investigative body should come in place, neighbor, Mr. Gardner is not going to be held responsible for anything, neighbor.
Well, yes.
Administrators are going to be held responsible for this, not Mr. Gardner. I'm telling you, neighbor, I'm going to escape scot-free. There's nothing this guy is going to face in this whole thing, neighbor, and it is just so sad. I'm telling you, neighbor, the problem lies, yes, Harry's
so
right.
What exactly is he being held accountable for? What?
Neighbor, he's being held accountable, neighbor, based on the fact, neighbor, that he's the chief executive officer of an organization, neighbor, that is embedded in some form of corrupt act, neighbor, with a government agency or arm of the government, neighbor, where they use government tax relief, neighbor, to bring in items, neighbor, and those items, neighbor, didn't went to the government facility, neighbor. They were given to a private company that Mr. Gardner is supposed to be the owner for. No, on a standpoint, yes, that is illegal, neighbor. Yes, Mocha and those investigate that, neighbor. That is why I don't like these Auditor General reports, neighbor. I feel like they don't go far enough. They just come with like some sound bites and then they just drop the button after that. I just feel that the Auditor General, the Auditor reports, neighbor, they just come.
Nothing individual or specific. Just broad arguments.
Broad arguments, neighbor. Nothing individual or specific, neighbor. But I think the Auditor General, neighbor, have the power, neighbor, and have the tools, neighbor, to make this thing more specific than how it is right now. Let us know directly. You have that power. You have the investigative power. You can call these persons from these organizations. You can get these persons from the ministry. I am watching the PAC, neighbor, and I hear the persons from the university hospital say they don't know who give the orders for this with Jotland and the other three companies.
Oh, really?
Yes, so they don't know who do it. They don't know what the hospital give those orders. They don't know who signed off on it. This is total madness, neighbor. When you come with these type of reports,
maybe someone from the morgue.
I must be, neighbor, a ghost or something, neighbor. These reports, neighbor, from the Auditor General, neighbor, we have seen it more than once, where the Auditor General release a report, neighbor. The report is so broad and wide, neighbor, that it is difficult for us to pinpoint any specific person and say, okay, this person is directly responsible for that. Yes, we know that it's Jotland benefited from the tax relief. We know that Mr. Dennis Gardner is the owner. We know that, yes, he's a member of parliament. Should he step away from the PAC? Of course. Should he step away from being a shadow minister, a shadow spokesperson? Of course, but I think it should also go further, because what I am looking at is, if this was done by a minister or anyone from the government side, but there are more for them to lose than the opposition members who are caught in corruption. And you cannot have a balanced system. The system is not balanced. The system is not fair. It is an unfair and unjust system when it is like that, neighbor. If a member of parliament, neighbor, regardless if you're in opposition or if you're on government benches, neighbor, whatever, if you're caught up in any corruption, neighbor, whatever penalties levied at you, you must suffer the same consequences, neighbor. It cannot be where a government minister, if it was a government minister who was caught in this, neighbor, he would have to step aside from the ministry. He would also lose certain benefits that comes with being at ministry. What Mr. Dennis Gardner lose? Mr. Gardner is not going to lose anything, neighbor. Mr. Gardner is going to still collect him salary come month end.
So I put it to you then, Scratchy. Is stepping aside enough from the PAC or from voluntary positions in the shadow cabinet, which are not paid positions, Is it
No,
enough?
neighbor, that is not enough for me. For me, that is not enough. That is not enough for me, neighbor.
Are you then asking for Mr. Gordon to resign as a member of parliament?
That is what I would ask, neighbor. I would ask. I know that our laws, neighbor, is tell you that it is very difficult to remove someone as a member of parliament, neighbor.
Yes.
But again, from a matter of morality, neighbor, it is very difficult. Or if it is not removed, neighbor, some laws or something must be in place so this guy don't turn up to parliament, neighbor. His salary is frozen until the investigation is complete. If he's found that he is not a part of it, neighbor, then retroactively his salary is reimbursed to him. Something must be done, neighbor. It cannot be where an opposition spokesperson, neighbor, who's caught up in corruption, neighbor, face less penalty than a government minister. It is total madness. It is total madness, neighbor. If a government minister will lose a portion of his salary.
So what you are saying, Scratch, is that this hullabaloo, this noise that is being made about Gordon resigning from PAC and moving away from positions in the PNP, that means nothing. What should happen is that the man should resign as a member of parliament. That's what you're saying.
Neighbor, this hullabaloo about this guy removing himself from PAC and this and that, neighbor, it is nothing, neighbor. I can tell you that Mr. Gordon might not even turn up to all of the PAC meetings that are scheduled for the year because of other activities or because of his schedule, neighbor. It is madness, neighbor. That doesn't go far enough. I know, again, it is very difficult, neighbor, to remove a member of parliament on certain level and certain level of allegations or without a proper investigation because he's right now, he was sent there by the people. But all I am saying, neighbor, is remove this guy from the political process, remove this guy from the parliamentary system in totality for the time being, neighbor. His salary should be frozen for this time, neighbor. No salary or limited salary or whatever, neighbor, because you're in the middle of something that is very serious until the investigation is completed. If it was a policeman, neighbor, he will be taking our frontline duties. He will be asked to stay home until the investigation is complete. And if he's not getting his salary, neighbor, they decide that he's going to go on interdiction without his salary.
Well,
after the investigation is completed. Yes, something must be done, neighbor. Removing him from the PAC, neighbor, doesn't grant us any form of justice. That is not far enough, neighbor. You don't get a salary to be a part of the PAC. You don't get any extra perks as the opposition member being a part of the PAC. You don't get any extra perks, neighbor. It is nothing to ask Mr. Gordon to step aside because come month 10, Mr. Gordon will still get his salary. Come next week, Tuesday, Mr. Gordon will still be going to parliament. It is a privilege and it is an honor and it is a perk to sit in the parliament of Jamaica. And once your name is caught in corruption, the laws of the land should be that you step away from the parliament until the name is clear.
Okay. Now, do you not find that your position is not held by the civil society groups in Jamaica? Why? Why don't they see it like that?
Civil society groups in Jamaica, a lot of these civil society groups, neighbor, they class them, some of them class themselves as NGO,
yes,
non-government organization, meaning they're organization where they don't make a profit. A lot of these guys, neighbor, they rely on government funding. A lot of them, neighbor, they rely on government agencies, neighbor, to reach out to them and give them some form of funding or whatever. And if you look at the built-up, neighbor, look at the creation of a lot of these civil society groups, if you look when a lot of them were created, if you look at the persons who head or persons who hold high position in a lot of these civil society groups, neighbor, a lot of these civil society groups never were created during the PNP 18.5 years. A lot of these civil society groups, neighbors, are headed or have membership, neighbor, from high-ranking members who support the People's National Party, whether past or present. So, and a lot of these civil society groups, neighbor, they tend to believe that whenever the People's National Party is in power, neighbor, that the People's National Party, through whatever government agency or government department, neighbor, they gain some form of funding. They gain more funding during that time from the government. So this government, this core group, neighbor, which call themselves civil society group, neighbor, they're biased, neighbor, and their bias lies with the People's National Party, neighbor. They are gonna always stand in solidarity with the People's National Party. They're not gonna always come out and see it from a from a professional level and try to say, okay, this is right or this is wrong. Yes, they are going to come out and some of them are going to talk under them throat and say, yes, ask him to step aside from the PAC, ask him to step aside as a shadow minister or whatever, because they know that these positions don't hold any form of weight, neighbor. They know that asking him to step aside from these things, they is not going to do anything. It don't create anything. It don't do anything. He's not losing anything. And I strongly believe, neighbor, that if someone is embedded in any form of allegation of corruption, neighbor, you, as a result of that, neighbor, you must feel it, neighbor. That is what is something that is going to prevent you from wanting to be a part of corruption. What is Mr. Dennis Gardner is being felt right, and what kind of pressure is being put on Mr. Gardner right here? None. Yes, some person might say, well, scratching the man of his money already, so even if him pay Gardner, he don't feel it. But at least Jamaican taxpayers, neighbor, are still not paying someone, neighbor, who's ready and who's seen as participating in any form of corrupt act. And there's a lot of mishaps and a lot of questions that need to be answered here in the neighbor. And as a person's trying to stray away from the university hospital, neighbor, a lot need to be done in that organization. How long has this process been going on for? When was this caught up with Mr. Gardner? Is it since he became a member of parliament? Was it before he became a member of parliament? These are questions that Jamaicans want to know. We need to know these questions. I hear them talk about the $10 million payback. In a situation like this, neighbor, and you might know more than me, who does this $10 million payback to? Who you pay back this $10 million to? You pay back this $10 million to TAJ, or you pay it back to the University of West Indies? Who this $10 million is paid back to? We don't know who get back this $10 million all now. So all of that is total madness. It's pure madness going on, neighbor. It is total madness. And you know, like it.
And you know, Scratchy, I think a forensic investigation should be held at the university hospital to find out, are there other companies that have benefited from this over the years? Don't you think?
Yes, neighbor. How long has the university hospital has been doing this? These are things that we need to know, neighbor. We need to know these things.
Yeah. And whether other hospitals in Jamaica or other government agencies doing the same thing, Scratchy.
Doing the same thing. These are questions that we need to know, neighbor. If we're going to fight corruption, neighbor, we have to fight corruption head on.
Oh my God.
We have to fight corruption. And
massive
this is
story.
Corrupt act. This is a corrupt act, neighbor. And I believe that, neighbor, whatever Mr. Gardner is asked to sacrifice, stepping away from the PAC, stepping away from whatever position he holds as an opposition spokesperson, neighbor, it is not enough, neighbor. I don't think that will any form of weight. Stepping away from the PAC, I don't think, neighbor, you don't get any extra perks. You don't get any extra salary being a part of the PAC, neighbor. And again,
what you're asking for is constitutional reform, you know, Scratchy. But let me ask you this, Scratchy. Don't you think that the narrative that was put out there was suggesting that it was the minister? Why was Dr. Dawes on a campaign to paint the minister as the culprit here? I don't understand. When the story broke, didn't you get that impression that this was about the minister?
Yeah, but I think, neighbor, that the PNP, neighbor, Dr. Dawes, especially, neighbor, and the PNP, neighbor, when time this story first came out, neighbor, whatever, cause if you notice how Dr. Dawes speak himself, neighbor, Dr. Dawes was also speaking against persons at the university hospital we claim to hold some form of allegiance to the governing Jamaica Labour Party.
Yes.
So he might be have to believe, neighbor, that this was something that had to do with the Jamaica Labour Party. If you look at even the new member of parliament, Chris Brown, who went to the parliament and calling for the names to be released, neighbor, as if they thought, neighbor, that this had something to do with the governing Jamaica Labour Party, neighbor. And when time they hear the names released, neighbor, and then now it was finally done now in our level now where the name was called, neighbor. I think they are well shook. And if you even look back at that clippings in parliament, neighbor, when Mr. Brown was, when Chris Brown was calling and pressuring the CEO, neighbor, of the university to speak and call the names of the companies, one of his persons on his bench, his and team, neighbor, were touching him and whispering something in his ears.
Yeah.
If you look back at the clipping, neighbor, it's like they were telling him to shut up, your madman, we are called Boax the name release for. Because, neighbor, they thought, neighbor, that they always telling the neighbors. My granny always said, neighbor, when you dig hole, you dig two. And careful who you nail upon cross. they were expecting to nail the Minister of Health and the Cross neighbor because of whatever they thought was coming neighbor, but it backfired on them, and it was publicly and it was officially announced that Jack Den group of companies was one of the companies that was caught in the corrupt act of bypassing taxes through tax exemplary that was supposed to be for the university neighbor. That's serious thing, serious thing.
Yeah. Harry?
Well,
let's go through the release from the PNP and see if we can find anything here. Let me read for you what the PNP has put out this evening. The statement from the PNP said, based on the facts made available to me, that's Golding, I have seen nothing to suggest that Jack Den has broken any law. Any comment on that?
As somebody who should know the law very well, neighbor, I believe the opposition leader is being very much disingenuous, very much misleading, because if you utilize your private company of a status that does not go to your company, and you seek to utilize that to bypass the taxing system of Jamaica illegally, isn't that an illegal activity? Is Mr. Golding also saying that Jack Den has statutory rights? No, by what we know on the Auditor General's report, no, they don't. Only the University of West Indies has that, right? No, that is tax evasion. Bringing in something worth 40 point something million and evading, because this is not tax avoidance, this is tax evasion, and that is illegal by the laws of the land. That is exactly what Jack Den has done to utilize a statutory exemption that they don't have. Again, Mr. Golding, who knows the law, he's a lawyer and he knows the Constitution way better than any one of us here.
Yes.
Are you now coming to the public in your speech to tell us a lie? Because if that is the case, which it is, you're not only being disingenuous, you're not only being misleading, you have no integrity. And that in itself, your fellow People's National Party members call it the integrity boss. You should go and look again what that meaning, what the definition of it is, and come again.
Wow, Harry. Let's read on. Furthermore, Mr. Gordon has, as is appropriate, recused himself from the Public Accounts Committee hearings considering this matter. Nevertheless, the situation with Jack Den has emerged in the public domain within the context of the many serious findings of maladministration at UHWI in the Auditor General report. I believe it is essential we consistently demonstrate our party's commitment to high standards of probity in public affairs and due respect for that, for the spirit of the leadership code of conduct that our MPs and senators have all signed. So then he's saying that Gordon has recused himself already. I therefore have decided that Mr. Gordon should step aside from the Public Accounts Committee and the Shadow Cabinet with immediate effect, pending the completion of ongoing investigation, and to follow the party's Integrity Commission to look into the matter closely and provide its recommendations. So the party's Integrity Commission is going to look into the matter and provide a recommendation to the leader.
This is the same leader, neighbor, who said he spoke to the member. He spoke to the member who was not named, right? and he's not guilty of anything. All right, now that is not verbatim, but months ago, that was his stance in his press conference. And I love consistency. And I want to say to the opposition leader, did he await the full investigation of the Prime Minister when the 28 bank accounts came to known? Or did he follow suit and run with it politically, prematurely of that said investigation and call for the resignation of the Prime Minister, questioning the Prime Minister's integrity and accountability status? Now, by the law of his consistency, stand on business, Mr. Golding. This is where the chips have fallen. And as such, was it that in that speech you were also trying to mislead the people of Jamaica? Because in Jamaica, neighbors, the actions speak louder than words. And if the statement of let the chips fall where they may, is it that we're supposed to believe based on your action? No, the chips has fallen to show that Jack Den and Mr. Gordon is culpable to what has happened. And as such, the chips has fallen to you standing by him. What does that say about your integrity and protecting of somebody who has attempted and successfully defrauded the people of Jamaica of millions of dollars? In this case, he would have been caught red-handed based on the reports now of 10.1 million, right? That is something you have to stand on, Mr. Golding. It is not something in which you get away with lightly by twisting your words and being elusive. You ran on the ticket of integrity and accountability at the highest level, but yet you are found more than wanting of exercising the action that speaks louder than declaration of integrity and accountability. This is the opportunity you missed again to stand on business. The opportunity to show that you're a viable opposition and a leader that Jamaica may take seriously. No, they can't. Maybe the 401,913 people will still commit to you. That is your base. But what about the undecided? You've now shown us who you are. I mean, you've been showing for quite a while. But statements like this, coming from a highly educated man, trying to bob and weave his way to put a spin on something that has affected the people of Jamaica, the very people in which he wants to represent, he's taking them for a fool. And as such, that's blatantly what it is. Maybe we are subjects based on the view of the People's National Party. Jamaicans are subjects. But subjects are not. That is a statement that holds no water. That is a statement that does not stand on integrity. That is a statement that doesn't even take accountability as a leader that this has happened under your watch. Because regardless as to the time frame that this has happened, he's been the party leader for approximately, 5 years, from 2020 to now, which simply means under his tutelage, under his leadership, hanky-panky was happening. And again, by the law of his consistency, if you want to call out on the opposite side who is in administration, no, because everything the People's National Party call out for, specifically Mark Golding, moving away from the salary to the 28 bank accounts to attacking the man, then you have to now stand on business at the highest level, because no longer the bar is in the mud or just above the murky waters. The bar is set so high that you have to look upon it. You either meet it or you do away with it. And take into consideration that we understand that Mr. Gordon may be one of your backing individuals because you're going to be challenged in a few months' time. And as such, you may be standing by him, hoping to continue getting his support when the time comes of your leadership challenge. Could that be it? Maybe so. So good try in terms of being strategic, but that was a statement of utter garbage, and you should wheel and come again, as they would say in Jamaican terms.
Wow, Harry, what a knock. Let me continue. Golden says, I wish to reiterate that I am not aware of anything which suggests Mr. Gordon or Jack then has breached any law. Furthermore, Jack then dialysis machines are now providing life-saving services to Jamaica's renal patients at a lower cost than otherwise available in the marketplace. Now, what does that have to do with the situation here?
Yeah, but like I said, it's a bobbing and weaving and trying to be elusive. That holds no ground whatsoever. And this was the reason why I brought up the Darrell Vaz situation, neighbor, because they were on his backs about it. In a Category 5 hurricane, they said he breached procurement and all of that. Didn't touch anything for Jamaicans. Didn't really breach any law, right? But his head was called for. Now, let's compare both, because they want the moral compass. So let's bring it to the morality of Jamaicans, right? And who has, made an attempt. Because what they're trying to say is intent, why they did what they did. A lot of people can have the right intent, but you break the law. Fraud are fraud. Tax evasion is tax evasion. That's against the law of the land. So, as somebody who knows the law very well, is it that you need to be refreshed on the criminal acts?
Because I don't think he break. I don't think he break the law to be true, though. I don't think. I don't think he break the law. It's not tax exempt, It's not. It wouldn't classify that tax exempt, Harry. Whatever Jack then got, Harry, Jack then couldn't get that off of his own. Jack then got that off from an organization who had the power to grant that authority.
But Scratchy, it is not one that goes for that company. Remember, So even if Mr.
Harry, it is a standard, It is a standard, where the company, where the university had the power to do that. The problem is that they were not at the dialysis machines were not at university hospital. They were given to Jack then. No, I don't know neighbor. I don't know Harry. That's why I try to. Sometimes these things come up. These are administrative issues. And sometimes these things come up, neighbor. I tend to tread based on what I am hearing and not try to pray, because I don't know if down in the long run they're gonna come and say that the past CEO of the university was a memorandum of understanding between Jack then and them to bring in these dialysis machines. I don't know what type of power the CEO had, but to be fair, I don't think it is illegal. It is an illegal issue, because if it was an illegal issue, we're only talking about morality right now. Jack, then
why is MOCA and the Integrity Commission and the police involved? Why?
Yeah, that is why they're trying to see now if it is how far does it go as a legal issue, right? That is currently seen as an administrative issue. Because remember, neighbor, Jack then by himself could not go and take the dialysis machine. It was done by someone who had the power to grant him that tax exempt. He did not bypass the taxes by himself. So whether it is cronyism or nepotism, it has to do with someone in the ministry, in the University of West Indies Hospital. That is where the sewer is. And then now, based on that person, Jack then now will be held accountable based on allegiance and based on nepotism and cronyism to what is going on.
Yes,
because that puts influence in an accomplice.
Or influence. Our neighbor, if it was it a case then? Was it a case then where whosoever grant Jack then this tax exemption to use the university papers, did Jack then pay off these persons for that? These are things we want to know.
Rhetorical question.
Did Jack then pay these persons to get that tax exempt to bypass that 10 million? Did he give them a bribe for them to give him that service? And he bypassed that. These are things that the investigation are gonna unplug and let us know. But right now, it is an administrative issue. To be honest, it's an administrative issue.
But put it in a Scratchy. It still places Jack then group of companies as an accomplice, right? Or an accessory.
Jack can't get away. Jack then can't get away from this. As I said, Jack then can never get away. But Jack then by himself did not go and just bypass taxes by themselves. This was done with someone who had the powers to grant that tax exempt. So what we need to know is Jack then pay that person a bribe or that person benefit in any way, shape, or form to grant Jack then this special deal. And if it's so, Jack then can be found questionable with all of that. But in most administrative things there, we know administrative things go. In most cases, it is a way where they ask you to repay whatever cost was done or whatever losses was suffered. Well,
breaking up a little bit near Scratch.
Have to dig deeper to find out if any farmer bribe was done. What was the reason? 3 other companies are also involved. I don't hear neighbor.
No man,
you did a break up strategy.
But if it was an illegal issue, I think someone would have been behind the bars by now. I think someone would have been behind the bars by now. It was an illegal issue from Jack then or from Wusem. I think someone would be behind the bars by now.
This is the spin that Jack then, because I believe they put out a post. I'll try and find where they're putting the blame on both customs and University Hospital of the West Indies. They're not taking any blame for it, despite paying back the $10.1 million. They're not taking any part to say, yes, they're culpable in it. But by the accessory of a crime, because that's what happened, they should also have their day in quote-unquote court. And I don't see them getting away with it. Now, people can argue to say, well, Mr. Gordon may not have known about it and whatever. But this is where, as neighbor put it, the morality aspect of it has to come into play. Yes, we may have where we say people of administration from Jack then group of companies, being held accountable. But the problem comes in now, being a principal owner, a single owner of a company like that, Scratchy. If your signature is on any of these documents, that places you there. That is something I'd love to see Mocha find. Because that is where Mr. Gordon will become liable directly. Not as the owner of just Jack then, but also as somebody at the highest level.
Can I say something here? Scratchy.
Hold on there. Who is this? Who is this we're talking to?
This is Churchill.
Okay. Go ahead.
Yeah, if you read the article in today's paper, The Observer, Dennis Gordon.
Who wrote the article?
Oh, I don't know. But Dennis
Anyone
Gordon.
can write the article, Churchill.
Huh? No, it says he was quoted. Dennis Gordon was quoted as saying this has been going on for 20 years, as if this practice is an ongoing thing where the university hospital get exemptions for private businesses. He as much as said that. And he made mention that he needed a permit. That means he imported the dialysis machines without permit. And so he asked the university hospital to do him a favor. Now, Dennis Gordon is acting as if he's done some charitable job, and so he's entitled to that kind of thing, that kind of tax exempt. And that's why he used the university. Now, if you ask me, they're all complicit, the customs, university hospital, and the companies. It seems there's been a practice for years, as Dennis Gordon has hinted. And so he didn't expect to be caught.
A level of normalcy.
Yes, exactly. It's only because the AG found it out. That's why it's this issue right today. But he threw the university hospital under the bus. He said, and Mark Golden remarked about it, that is the university hospital that they're blaming. He called it maladministration at the University Hospital of the West Indies. So he's trying to deflect from Dennis Gordon to the University of the Hospital. Now the question is asked, who did Dennis Gordon pay the taxes to? Who was it owed to? If he wasn't doing business with the customs, that means he should have paid the University Hospital that money. Why did Dennis Gordon say he paid the tax exempt to customs? What about the penalty for fraud? Because straight up, it's a fraud. There's no way you can go around this. It is a fraud. And even if he paid back the money to whomever, there's still a penalty for fraud. And that may include imprisonment for the person who commit to it at the university hospital, at Jack Dem, and at custom, because I think they're all complicit.
All I'm saying, Churchill, is that I strongly believe that whatever was granted to Jack Dem, some bribe was given to get that. That was just my point, and that's why the investigation need to come into to further realize what is going on, because I can't see why at the university would grant Jack Dem to bring in dialysis machine that has no benefit to the university hospital, but give him the opportunity to use whatever tax exempt the university have, without the university hospital or persons who hold that power benefiting in no way, shape, or form. So I believe that whosoever granted that benefited in some way, shape, or form.
So that's a clear indication that has been going on for years, as Dennis Garden has said. It's been going on. It's not the first time.
And then the thing with it, right? This is a major part of it. If they're benefiting from this tax exemption, and they want to come off as if they're doing some humanitarian deed, right? I see a quote of Jack Dem offering dialysis at 50% market price, acting as if it's a humanitarian thing. Then why do they charge the said University Hospital of West Indies 5 to 10 times what the service actually costs to do it? Because you're now using the university tax exemption. You're proclaiming to be some form of humanitarian aspect, but at the same time, you're taking advantage by pricing the same service to the university at a higher price. Make it make sense.
All right. Let's jump on a little bit and see if we can wrap this at 20 minutes to 10 o'clock. Scratchy, at the end of the day, what we have here is, as a growing democracy, there are many things that we have to look at in terms of how we do business, how institutions transact business with private institutions and all of that, Scratchy. Because at the end of the day, Scratchy, if Gordon should even resign and go back to the people, it's likely they may even re-elect him.
Of course, without a doubt, neighbor. If he should resign and go back to the people, they're going to definitely re-elect him, neighbor. As I said, neighbor, that this thing has been embedded in our culture for too long, neighbor. I think our persons who neighbor, in Jamaica, neighbor, who hold administrative position, who have some form of authority, neighbor, some form of power, neighbor. Whatever authoritative power these persons have, neighbor, it must be scrutinized from a more deeper level. It must be done from a more deeper level, neighbor. I think the time has come, neighbor, where we need some serious form of legislative reform in Jamaica, neighbor, because no single-handed person, neighbor, from any organization, neighbor, should have any power that can direct anyone to get any form of tax exempt, neighbor. Those things should come directly from the Tax Administrator Office of Jamaica, neighbor. You understand what I'm saying, neighbor? It is the TAJ who you need any form of these things. You write to TAJ, and TAJ, based on what you're doing and whatever, if you're qualified or you pass or reach any benchmark, TAJ granted these tax exempt, neighbor.
Yeah. Well,
the Jamaicans reach.
Yeah, let me tell you this though, Scratch. I run a charity, and the charity had a charity status that you could use that status to bring things in with a lot of exemptions. As a matter of fact, under the charity status, you don't even pay GCT on certain items.
Yes,
even electricity bill, but you have to apply to the TAJ to get the exemption. So but the system needs to be tightened up, Harry. Scratchy, that's what you are saying. That the system is not foolproof. It needs to be tightened up, and it leaves room for corruption.
Neighbor, the system needs to be tightened up, neighbor. The system leaves room for corruption, neighbor. Cronyism and nepotism, neighbor, is ruining Jamaica, neighbor. And it is very heartening, neighbor, when time you have an opposition party who's in power, neighbor, and that party is an opposition party, and you're marred in corruption allegations.
Yes, amazing, eh?
Yeah, it does smell good, it does smell good to know that you are in opposition, and while you're in opposition, you're being marred in corruption. Allegations of corruption are coming at you left, right, and center. As an opposition party, and Mr. Dennis Gardner being a first-time member of parliament, and for corruption allegations like these to be leveled at an organization that you're the head of or that you're a part of, neighbor, it doesn't smell good for Jamaican and well-thinking Jamaicans. And that's why I am calling, neighbor, for deeper penalty toward Mr. Gardner, neighbor. Whatever investigation needed that is carrying out right now, Mr. Gardner needs to step aside from the whole parliament itself. Mr. Gardner's salary needs to be frozen until whatever investigation is done. If Mr. Gardner is found not to be in breach of any laws or anything, then your salary is reverted to you. You know, you get whatever salary you miss is being reimbursed back to you and stuff like that, neighbor. Where you go on some form of interdiction or something, neighbor, it cannot be, neighbor, where we have something like this or a level of corruption, neighbor, and an opposition member, neighbor, and the penalty that the opposition member might face is less, neighbor, than if it was a government member, neighbor. It is sad. As I say again, neighbor, if this was done by a government member, that government member would have lost a portion of his salary. That government member would have lost a lot of perks, and that government member would have lost a lot of things, neighbor. And it should be a privilege, it should be a honor, neighbor, to sit in our parliament. And you should not attend the parliament of our land, neighbor, with any acts or allegation of corruption against you, especially in this farm. When you were, as someone who runs an organization like Jack Den group of companies, and you're mad in this type of corruption, neighbor, as an opposition, Mr. Gardner needs to step aside, neighbor. It don't sit well, it doesn't smell good, and it doesn't show any strong level of governance going forward in our country, neighbor. And the opposition, I know Jamaica, neighbor, is a country where a lot of Jamaicans don't buy into these things, neighbor, because as I say, neighbor, even if Mr. Gardner should step aside and go back to that constituency and offer himself for re-election, neighbor, they're going to vote him in again, neighbor. So these are some of the things, neighbor, why it is so difficult, neighbor, for persons to step aside based on the level of morality. Because morality has no space in Jamaica political system, neighbor. Jamaica political system is not one that is thrive on morality. These people are these persons, neighbor, they stand behind you no matter what you do and no matter what you say, neighbor. They can't see the wrong in it. And that is why Jamaica political system is so divisive. That is why Jamaica political system is so tribal. And that is why it is so difficult for us to separate right from wrong. Because persons, neighbor, they just see color. It is just seen orange and it is just seen green. No one, neighbor, taking the time out to say, look at this from a standpoint. Or has Jamaica's benefited or what Jamaica lost as a result of this? The PNP now, through them statement you just read it, is making it seem that this, yes, we have benefited. We have not benefited, neighbor. We have lost because you are trampled on the structures and the system and the governance structure and governance system that was set up to follow the rules and regulations as a sitting member of parliament. So I again, neighbor, Mark Golding, neighbor, I am not going to waste my breath, neighbor. I didn't expect anything better from Mark Jefferson Golding. I didn't expect anything better from the People's National Party. The People's National Party is a political organization that they have always put what is in the best interest of PNP over the best interest of Jamaicans, neighbor. So I am not surprised by Mark Golding rhetoric. I am not surprised by the statement. But again, neighbor, it is up to well-thinking Jamaicans to come out and voice their opinions on these things, neighbor. Come out and be bold and speak about it. If you talk about it in your shower, you talk about it one way, it's not going to have any form of far-reaching effect if all of us just did. We have to come out and talk. And again, the organizations who have the power, the organizations who have the will to can talk about these things, but they are not going to do it, neighbor, because they are in support of the People's National Party. They are proxy groups of the opposition. So they are not going to do it. So again, we just have to wait and see, neighbor, how far it goes in terms of the investigation. But I am of the belief, neighbor, that the minute the university hospital, whosoever grant Mr. Gardner and his organization that tax exempt, neighbor, it wasn't done in any good faith or in the best interest, saying that, okay, Jamaicans are suffering from sickness that require them to get dialysis or use a dialysis machine, Jack then is going to offer it at a 50% reduction cost. So let us grant Jack then this. I don't think those are decisions that should be made by the minister himself or the Ministry of Health. No single man who run a hospital shouldn't be able, or who's a part of any hospital should be able to make that neighbor. And I strongly believe that a bribe or something was granted neighbor for Mr. Garden neighbor to get this thing. And that is my personal opinion. And that is what I want Mocha and these relevant authorities to come and dig up. And to the Auditor General again neighbor is the group and is the organization in Jamaica that is tasked or the investigative power to go and investigate these neighbor. Auditor General reports neighbors are too basic neighbor. The Auditor General report need to be more fine-tuned, it need to be more direct, and it need to be more precise. And you must be, as the Auditor General, whenever you release a report and you release that report to the Parliament, but the report should also be made public to us after a certain period of time. It cannot be where companies' name are in these type of things and you're scared to call these companies' name. Then why you bother put them name in a report then? Are you going to come and you're going to hide and don't want to talk? Look how long we have been hearing speculation of Jack then being a part of it. But no nothing farmer didn't come straight from these organizations to say, yes, Jack then is the one who was a part of it, neighbor. That is rubbish and that is foolishness, neighbor. You need to name them and shame them. Or else if you feel like say you don't, if you don't, that basically tells us that you don't have any confidence in whatever findings you come with then. If you cannot release these names, neighbor, whatever come in these reports, neighbor, I agree, go to Parliament. After Parliament speak about these reports, neighbor, these reports must be made public to Jamaicans. Every one of us can see these things. Every single part of it must be reported and have national security and national security to certain level, neighbor. Total madness going on in the place.
How is the public to respond to those scratches? Because already the system is fractured and it has isolated many of our people where they see these things happening from time to time, and now here we are again embroiled in another controversy, in another seeming corruption. How do you think the people are going to respond, Scratchy, with more ambivalence, or do you think that they look into this and put guilt where guilt is to be? Yeah.
These things, neighbor, are things, neighbor, why a lot of persons, neighbor, don't want to be a part of the political system. And I want all Jamaican and all well-thinking Jamaican, don't look at this thing on the PNP, don't look at this thing on the JLP thing, the neighbor. When time people see these things continue to happen, neighbor, these things cause a dump upon you as politician. Persons are saying, yes, it's because I'm a politician why I'm going to get this, neighbor. Persons are going to say because, yes, a politician alone can get these type of things, neighbor. Neighbor, the time has come, neighbor, for persons who offer themselves to serve Jamaica, neighbor, who want to serve Jamaica and serve with the best interest and serve with Jamaica best interest, neighbor. Whatever position you hold, neighbor, in your private life, neighbor, how can you be a part of our political system? But you are basically running a hospital where you can use your powers and your authority.
Well, the law, the conflict of interest, Scratchy. You have to give up that.
Yeah, you're supposed to give up these things. You're supposed to give up these things. You're supposed to give up these things, neighbor. You're not supposed to be the head of anything like these once you put it yourself in the political frame. You're supposed to relinquish yourself from all of these things, neighbor. And Jamaicans, neighbor, are not going to just look at, well-thinking Jamaicans are not going to just look at it and say, yeah, so PNP stay. Or someone going to say, all right, I saw that the J stay. Jamaicans are going to look at it, neighbor, and say, I saw politicians stay, neighbor.
Yes,
and it's going to cause a problem, neighbor, for political side, for people who are JLP, and cause a problem for PNP. It is a broad thing, neighbor, because people are going to say, only politician could have benefit from this. Look how much of the company and railway, only a politician could get this. Only a politician could get that, neighbor. Because guess why? It is the Jamaica Labour Party that is in power, neighbor. And persons are going to say, how come the Jamaica Labour Party is in power, but someone from the PNP benches can be benefiting from things like this, from you know? So, neighbor, it is going to be seen as a politician issue, neighbor. And these are things why other persons don't want to be part of the political process. These are things why people continue to say that politicians are thieves. These are things why people continue to say politicians are corruption. You know, each one, look how each one represent all of them, neighbor. Once you're a politician, you do any form of corruption activity, neighbor, you create a dump upon the whole political landscape, not just yourself, and the organization that you're a part of. And that's why the politician, they need to...
Yes, yes, correct. And we have really struggled. As a matter of fact, commendation to Wholeness, we have been rebranding the politics, Scratch. It's a long time we don't hear about no corruption, nepotism, no the politics. And this one here, Scratchy, is disappointing. Eh?
Very, very disappointing, neighbor. Very, very disappointing, neighbor. Because yes, we were trying to balance certain things, neighbor, to put away this nepotism, put away this level of cronyism, neighbor. Let Jamaicans feel like, yes, even though you are a politician, all of us are the same. None is more than none, neighbor. But Jamaicans never continue to believe, neighbor, that politicians can get away with anything. Jamaicans continue to believe, neighbor, that politicians can do anything. Jamaicans continue to believe, neighbor, that politicians are corrupt. And Jamaicans are going to continue. That's why we see some persons don't want to be a part of the political process, and they talk about it because people want money to vote. It's because, no, neighbor, because people are of the belief, neighbor, that once you're a politician, you can't do anything and get away. And again, anyone who offers themselves for political representation, neighbor, the moment that you're a part of our political system, the moment you're a politician in Jamaica, especially a member of parliament, and you sit in the parliament, neighbor, you should relinquish yourself a lot of things that you have in your private life, because there's going to be conflict of interest. I don't know what kind of personal relationship you can build with someone, and because of your political, your whatever political position you hold, you can go and manipulate a system. That might be the case right now in terms of Dennis Garden, neighbor. Those things have to be fixed. Neighbor. Jamaica has some serious fixing to do in terms of our perception of corruption, and in terms of persons, neighbor, who continue to be administrative, persons who are private citizens, neighbor, who hold high position in our governance system, persons who have certain level of powers, neighbor. We must hold these persons to higher accountability level, neighbor. Not just fire these people when time these people commit any wrongdoing, neighbor, but jail time must be the order of the day, neighbor. We must make an example. Same way like how we say we lose much money to crime and violence, and we harden the penalty on criminals, neighbor. We must also harden the penalty, neighbor, and administrators, neighbor, who are robbing us blind. They are taking away from the coffers, neighbor. They are taking away from taxpayers. And we must also harden whatever penalty is going to place on this person. And that person from the university hospital who grant this tax exempt to Dennis Garden organization, neighbor, that person, neighbor, should face the full length of the law in no uncertain terms. I'm not talking about a basic slap on the wrist. Prison time, neighbor, to make an example out of them. And anybody in a Mr. Gardner organization, any signature or any signatory from Mr. Gardner organization who is a part of it, prison term, neighbor. We must name them and shame them and lock them up, neighbor. Full time now. Them people start this neighbor, they are robbing blind, neighbor. Not crime alone taken away from Jamaica GDP, neighbor. Persons who hold high position in administrative offices are also robbing us, and they're robbing us blindly. And they should face the full length of the law for it.
Great commentary. Great commentary from you this evening, Scratchy. Harry, you have the final word.
Well, neighbor, I think I'll roll it back to the moral aspect of it. We have a colonial system, right? And in society, we tend to beat it, to say, let's move to something that is governed by our own. But I want to point out one thing in that system. In the UK, we have Tulip Siddiq, right? She was the UK Economic Secretary to the Treasury, right? And a member of her family was called to an investigation. And from a moral and ethical standpoint, she stepped down. That is a person who has not broken any ministerial code. She has not been held in any position of compromise. And she stepped down as a politician. My thing to it is, when our politicians of Jamaican system will have that moral compass. And it doesn't matter which side of the aisle you sit, it has to be the standard that is upheld. Because while it is engraved, from what we're seeing, it is engraved in our system for far too long. To build back better and going forward as a nation, to be taken seriously on the global stage, these stories aren't something we want to be coming out. I will beg to say we can always look to our neighbors and very distant neighbors, El Salvador, with Nayib Bukele, with his zero stance on corruption, on fraud, on any criminality. We've tolerated, right? Because clearly it seemed that it's some level of normalcy from the perspective of a lot of people. But we have to be the change we want to see for it to happen. And I implore every single politician and anybody who is aspiring to be one, have your moral compass in check. Ensure that you hold yourself at the highest level to lead. Because what you do in private is what you do almost every single time. And then you examine yourself. Because we're going to go into an age and to an era, or the era that we want to go into, where we can trust both the political process and our government. Now, we maybe never ever trust it 100%, and that's fine. That democracy is not perfect, and no system is perfect. But I'll say this is the first step to take in the right direction for those who are there, who may be culpable to these things as well. Don't wait until the light is shown on you. Step aside. Let's not put our private acts above the people. And this is a national cry. Let us look as to where we want Jamaica to be, because these things have taken away significantly from the advancement of our people, specifically the access to resources for the utilization of the people of Jamaica. Let us not have to be fighting regarding what is morally correct versus the legal stance of it. Don't let us have to look at any more political persons to say, is he or she questionable? And I think the framework, that job description that was restructured in 2023 has to be put under the microscopic lens again, to be revised. And that was signed in 2025 by both sides of the aisle. Because this is not just affecting Jamaicans alone, it affects the overall standard of Jamaica being viewed from a global standpoint. Now, our corruption, on the corruption index, we're 44 of just over 100. That is something we want to improve. And again, this is an opportunity from both sides, government administration and the opposition, and even, let me throw in, institutions that should be of aid to the people of Jamaica, that they have to look at it and ensure that they uphold from an institutional standpoint, from a legislation standpoint, and a moral standpoint, that we start to create the framework and systems of Jamaica that we want to see going forward. And to put it lightly, there has to be a restructure, has to be some form of reformation, and clauses put in to these things where the public can hold these people accountable if the institutions that should be holding them accountable fails. And as such, they should also be tried and, as Scratchy said, name and shame, and publicly be dismissed, both by the law and be scorned upon by the public. And as such, to create a culture where we can move forward without hesitation to take Jamaica to another step. Because countries who advance, they reduce the level of corruption right across the board. And it's going to take a very long time and a lot of hard work to put a new frame in our system, but it's not impossible. It is not improbable either. But we have to now start by weeding out the overbodies, that should be overseeing these institutions to ensure that they can hold everybody accountable, doesn't matter who you are. And as such, let's clean up the mess. Doesn't matter who the light is being put on. Let's clean it up for a better Jamaica. Just like how we have beach cleanup day, let's clean up our political and governmental system, our administrative systems, our framework that governs the movement of our people, the movement of this country. Because at the end of the day, we all want a better Jamaica, and it should not be at the disadvantage of anyone. It should not be private gain and party gain over the people. Because at some point in time, we have to realize that it no longer serves a country going forward. And as such, we should start to make the difference now. And that's where I leave it, neighbor.
Boy, this was sobering from you, Harry. Churchill, do you want to wrap us up?
Yes, neighbor. Harry, you've said it so eloquently, brother. But while it's aspirational, it doesn't give us hope when we see the leader of the opposition and the spokesperson on the opposition side for finance disingenuously come out and say, well, them not see whether Dennis Garden did anything wrong, or if he did anything wrong, he paid for it after the fact, and that's supposed to make it right? What kind of precedence is that? It's like saying a person can rob the bank, and as long as he paid it back, everything should be fine. That's not a good example. And that's why this situation should be made an example in light of what you've said there, Harry. They should make an example of it that says, no, you cannot commit fraud, you cannot commit a crime and not pay for it. This is a perfect situation to send an example. It's a teaching moment for the nation. When the opposition spokesperson want to imply that everything is okay now because after the fact he paid the fine. So what happened to the act itself? Something is wrong with the act, Mr. Julian Robinson and Mr. Opposition Leader Mark Golding. Something is wrong with the act, and you both need to come out and say it, which Mark Golding has already sent mixed signal about it. Because on the one hand, he said he's removing him from the PAC. So if he didn't do anything wrong, why are you removing him? It doesn't make any sense. So while what you say, Harry, is aspirational, I think we have a far way to go, brother. And that's where we are today.
Well, thank you. Thank you, Harry. Thank you, Scratchy. Thank you, Churchill. Thank you, listeners. Please remember the Hello Neighbor show is aired right here on the Politics Plus network, Monday to Fridays, 6 o'clock till 9 o'clock. And of course, on Sundays, 6 o'clock to 9. Also, we come on a Sunday morning, just about 7 or 8 o'clock, depending on the time we have. Had a great time this morning. Had a great time with you this evening also, listeners. I appreciate your staying with us. And tomorrow is a holiday. Tomorrow is Easter Monday. And who to tell? We may very well surprise you. If you are in Jamaica, 876-858-9553. That's 876-858-9553. If you are anywhere in the world, well, in the United States, and you want to send a contribution to the program,